Hey guys, welcome back to Raid Shadow Legends. In today's video, after I managed to finish getting my Arbiter on this account in 30 days, now I feel like it's a safe time for me to make a video going through what I think is the best free-to-play start you can have in the game. I'll talk about some slight paid options that you can add on top of it, and some different options that you can do as well if you missed out on some of these champions. But in general, I think that there is such a good free-to-play core that you can start with in this game, and that is going to be involved using the download links. Now, I'm going to refer to champions from my download link because I really love the core that these guys give you. But in general, if you're not playing the game with a download link and using a beginner code, which the beginner codes, that's how I got Supreme Galek. You can also get Wukong. You can also now get Alice as well. If you're not using one of those codes, then I really think you need to consider restarting and doing it, depending on how far you're into the game. But once again, my download link down in the description below will let you start with Elenaril. You'll get Tagoar, you'll get Mausoleum Mage, and also Uugo. These three especially make such a great supportive core for your team, and I'm going to go through each of them individually, and then we'll talk about the different aspects of the game and why they are so good there, especially for new accounts. And that leaves one last spot, and that is your download, your beginner code. And like I said, I think Galek for early progression, if you're trying to really progress an account, is the best one out there, better than Alice, better than Wukong. Now, there is definitely reasons to choose the other ones when we start looking to PvP, if you want to focus more on the long-term getting to PvP, but in general progression, Supreme Galek is huge. And let's start here. Now, if you don't have Supreme Galek, you'll probably start with Kale and use him as your damage dealer, your poisoner and stuff like that, but I just think this guy offers way too much value. On this account, what I did was I started with Supreme Galek. I also started my account with normal Galek so that I had the Orc faction crypt unlocked for 7 days, which allowed me to use Tagoar and Supreme Galek to craft a lot of really powerful gear early on. That's a more advanced strategy. So if you're completely brand new, don't sweat too hard. You can always jump into my Discord and ask a bunch of questions. There's plenty of guys doing it over there. But let's talk about Supreme Galek. Why do I absolutely love this guy? He gives you access to an AoE HP burn, which may not sound crazy, but this is super important when you look to doing something like Spiders runs, and also when you move into the Hydra, and it's just also good in a lot of Doom Tower bosses and different aspects of the game. So the AoE HP burn is a really nice thing. On top of that, if they're above 50% turn meter, it also gives a decreased speed, which is a really nice effect to have. And then throw on top of that a block buffs, which is also very important, especially when you look through trash waves of dungeons. Now, we also do have that ability to block buffs on Uugo, but having a second ability to put that is really nice when we look to Hydra even, which is a bit further on, but especially through waves of enemies where they do have buffs and they can really be an issue for you. This is fantastic. Now, on top of that, he can also give himself an attack buff, meaning you don't have to have an attack buffer with him to make him deal solid damage, and he can also proc his HP burns, and then he can also extend the duration of HP burn. Really nice. The other thing that makes him huge when we look to the Demon Lord clan boss, now he's not like the meta pick for Demon Lord clan boss, but he is a very sufficient unit to get you started when you don't have a massive roster. Reason being, his passive. If you make him the second slot in your team, you can pretty much guarantee that the Demon Lord, at least on Void Affinity, is normally going to use his single target stun on this guy, and when he does that, all he is doing is proccing this passive, which lets him have an instant extra turn and stops him from being stunned. So essentially, every time the Demon Lord has to use a basic attack, he's giving Galek an extra turn, which is really, really nice for an early game account. Like I said, this guy is an absolute monster, just brings so much value to a new account, where I see a lot of accounts get bricked by not having an AoE HP burn, and if you can get one for free with a beginner code, it's really nice. Once again, maybe I'll do a whole video talking about the best beginner code, because there is definitely reason to pick Wukong if you're looking more at PvP and stuff like that, but that is a video for another time. I definitely think for a new player trying to have a solid experience playing through the game, this is definitely the one, or if you're an experienced player trying to do a really fast push account, I definitely think he is the one. Now let's talk about the next champion in this team, which is Tagoar. Now he's an epic. He is the first epic I think you should put your skill books in, and you should max out his skill 2 and his skill 3. If you can avoid putting some books into skill 1 through pure RNG, that is fantastic. What does this guy have? He has a team-wide heal on a 3-turn cooldown once you max it out. Once again, you really need to book this guy as quick as you can. It's a big heal based on his max HP, and because you're going to be building with him with a ton of HP, you definitely want to, this is very valuable because it's going to be healing your squishier DPS DPS by a lot more than 50% of their HP. So this is fantastic. And then on top of that, it slaps a speed buff on there, which is speed is everything in this game. So speed buff is huge. Then we have this one, which is a big shield and also revives any dead allies. So this one is really nice. It's on a 5-turn cooldown maxed out, which is kind of lengthy, but it is still incredibly valuable. It allows you to really push through like a bunch of aspects of the game before you realistically should be able to, because your champions can get sniped and then this guy can just bring them back. Literally, this guy is your carry. Normally we talk about carries in terms of being DPS that carry your runs. This guy is your supportive carry because he can let stuff die, he can bring them back, he can speed everyone up, he can heal them back up, and then on top of that, he also has this basic attack, which may not seem crazy, but it is super clutch in a lot of situations, where he places the big defense increase on an ally for 2 turns when he uses that basic. Really nice for helping with that survivability in a pinch situation where something's getting focused down. And on top of that, he also does reduce the damage allies take when they're below 50%. This guy is just a genuine monster of a unit, and honestly probably like one of the best supports you could hope to have in the game. Well, realistically, besides looking at some like void legendaries and some mythicals and stuff like that, he is an absolute monster, a must-have for a playthrough in my opinion. The next one is Mausoleum Mage. Now, this guy kind of doesn't have as high value in the end game, but his early game value is incredibly huge. He has a team-wide defense increase. It also has the crit rate buff, which is nice, and a block buffs for 1 turn, but the 2-turn defense increase on a 3-turn cooldown when you get 1 book into it is really nice. So I lucked out. I only took 2 books to get this. I've been considering trying to max out his skill 3 as well, his 3rd skill, but it's just a lot of books that get wasted into this, and because I don't build him with accuracy, he's not reliably landing this speed decrease, so I don't really want to waste a bunch of books on that, and he's kind of been working all right for me, but just know you can max this one out as well, and he'll be even better. But that defense increase is really nice for helping your survivability in early game. Block debuffs is always very useful, and crit rate, eases sort of some of the gear requirements for your champions in the early game. Then we have this ability. So this ability is really nice. It's a cleanse that cleanses all debuffs from allies, which is first just amazing in itself. Then it also heals them for 10%, which is great. If it actually removes a debuff, it'll actually heal them for 20% instead. And then if it removes 2 debuffs or more, it will also fill their turn meter. So this is a really stacked ability, and the cleanse is something you find you need a lot, especially through this early game, until you start pulling some other cleanses, which is pretty tough to do. Now, we do have a pseudo cleanse with Uugo as well, but this is going to be a fantastic ability that can really help you out along the way. Absolutely just huge when you combine the defense buff, the immunity, and the cleanse, and the heal, and the gauge boost. There is a lot to it. Now, something else that I do want to mention is this is a bit more advanced, but once you, if you do happen to unlock his soul, you actually can get this one here, which is Faultless Defense, which makes him really good in Fire Knight when we speak about dungeons a bit later on, because if an ally has his defense increase, it reflects damage back at the boss for each enemy that he hits, and with the Fire Knight, you need to hit him lots of times to break his shield. And this, if you have 5 units on your team that have Mausoleum Mage's defense buff, well, it's going to reflect 5 hits, meaning you've had 5 ticks into that shield, which is a really nice thing. Besides that, he's not good in Fire Knight, but as soon as he gets this, he's amazing for Fire Knight. So I just wanted to add that in there where he does get some extra utility. Now, those 3 are going to be like your real early game core. And as I mentioned, you do want to first book up your Tagoar because he is amazing. And until you get enough books to then max out your Uugo, she's not going to be great. But once you get enough books to max her out, Uugo becomes an absolute monster. We get an AoE defense decrease and block buffs on a 3-turn cooldown. And we get this ability here, which is removes heal reduction effects, which is a really good one to get rid of. And then 1 other random debuff. So it's not a full cleanse, but it's a pseudo cleanse, which is really nice, plus a heal based on Uugo's max HP. The other thing is, if all allies are dead, it then becomes a revive, which is really nice. This passive is also pretty cool, where if all allies are dead, she gets speed increase and block damage. Basically, the idea is that all allies die, she is left, she gets invincible, and then she can revive everyone back. That's the whole concept around that one. And then we also do have the basic attack, which is going to put Leech, which is huge for when we look to getting healing from bosses. Once you get some of your masteries complete and you start getting your War Master or your Giant Slayer masteries, which do damage based on max HP, meaning you're going to do a lot of damage to the boss with this, which is pretty much going to heal up your allies when they attack into that Leech debuff, which is absolutely fantastic. fantastic. So Uugo becomes so valuable once you can actually book her. Before she's booked, she's not as good, and I don't prioritize her books over Tagoar because Tagoar carries your runs. That's the basic process. So once again, those four I think are absolutely the core fundamental lock-in to a free-to-play team if you use the download link. Now, if you don't, you can work around some other things. There are a few defense buffers that can do this type of thing. You don't need a defense buffer. If you didn't have him, probably about 20 to 30 days into your, probably about 20 days, I think, into your account, through Plarium points, you can get a Morag. Now, she doesn't have the defense buff, but she does have a nice strengthen effect, which is really, really nice. She also gets some revenges as well, and an ally attack. So she's not too bad, but that strengthen buff is another way to mitigate some damage, because that's what we're kind of looking for, is some damage mitigation type effects. Now, if you don't have Tagoar, someone else you could look to... Okay, I had to take him out of the vault. Yeah, you could look to someone like Apothecary. Unfortunately, you lose the revive, which, like I mentioned, is so important. But he has a speed buff with a turn meter feel, which is fantastic. He has a big juicy heal that can crit as well. And he also has a multi-hit, which is really good for something like Fire Knight as well, that you can bring into that. He is a good option. However, you cannot farm him. It is just a matter of luck from getting him from summons, but he is a rare champion. So those are some other champions that you can use, to help you with some damage mitigation and stuff like that, and also healing / speed buffing. But like I said, this core of units is just so damn amazing. And then, as the one I haven't mentioned, is Elenaril. Now, Elenaril is kind of like a fringe one where she works super good when you first start your account. She will start to get a little bit phased out, but she does have really good synergies with the Supreme Galek because she has an unresistible burn, meaning it's always going to apply. And you don't really need the accuracy to land this. It's a really nice effect because Galek will use his skill too and remove the burn to deal the extra damage. But then you could also just reapply a burn with Elenaril and keep getting that extra burn damage. On top of that, she has AoE double poisons if you crit, which is really nice. And she can also explode poisons. Now, this explode poisons I never really use. It's not really valuable until you have a few other poisoners built. But in general, she does work pretty decently across the board. Once again, she does fall off a little bit once you start getting other champions, like for instance, when we had the Alice login and stuff like that, but she is still absolutely fantastic. But as I mentioned, I think the main core for free-to-play that absolutely dominates the game is going to be Tagoar, the Mausoleum Mage, the Uugo, and also the Supreme Galek. Now, there is another champion that is absolutely fantastic. There she is, Rectodrath. Now, you can pick her up through the beginner pass. I think it's like $10 US. I don't know. The Australian conversion was weird. But she is another fantastic champion that you can use if you do pick her up, because attack break is going to be something very important when we look to the Demon Lord clan boss. So she is definitely another one you can use. But like I said, I feel like the beginner core of those other three units is so super strong for so many aspects of the game. And then she is another great one that you can slap in on top of that for the decreased attack, especially when you look to something like Demon Lord. If you haven't pulled any other decreased attack units, she does also have the perfect veil, which is really nice when we look to something like the Hydra. But once again, she is going to be a paid champion, but just another option that you can take a look at to help you out in certain situations. Now, I want to quickly show you guys and talk about the different areas of the game. Now, when we look to the Dragon's Lair, so Dragons 20 is like a big benchmark that people like to get to. Now, I just completed my Arbiter missions. I have not upgraded my Great Hall or anything like that, or changed any of my gear since I did this, because I wanted to be able to test teams with like a realistic expectation of where you can get to. So over here in the Dragon's Lair, and if you're someone who plays more casually, it might take you 50, 60, 70 days to get here. It just depends how actively you play. Like I said, I played this game basically non-stop every day for 30 days to get to where I am. So when I look to Dragons 20, this team just completely destroys the dragon. Now, there is something about dragons, which once again, I'll do more in-depth videos into this stuff, but getting your mastery sorted and getting your War Master or Giant Slayer on your champions is going to be huge for dragon. Dragon in general, we talk about poisons being the main source of damage to break the dragon's shield. However, there are two other main sources, which is your War Master or Giant Slayer, and also if you do get someone... for instance, like let's just go back over here, like my Alice, who can apply, and this was a bit of a cheat when they gave the Alice, Brimstone. Brimstone is also a huge one against the dragon. However, you do need a legendary with some awakening. It's just happened that when they had the Alice event going on, she basically got this for free, which was absolutely broken for free-to-play accounts. But that is just another source that you can do. But in general, when we take a look over here, as long as you get your units tanky enough, when you're running with the Mausoleum Mage and the Uugo and the Tagoar, Tagoar, it basically gives you enough survival that you can sort of ignore the dragon and let him stun you and still get through it perfectly fine. Also, you know, we still have the Supreme Galek in here who will heal himself to full when he would have got stunned and just take another turn, which is really nice. So we do have definite ways to break the dragon's shield in this team, but we also have ways just to deal with it anyway. So really solid team core over here. Now, obviously for my account, I drop her out and I bring the Nut because he's just stronger, but I did a few runs with this and it worked perfectly fine, just running the Elenaril, even though my Elenaril is still level 45 and has absolutely horrible gear, still works perfectly fine. Honestly, we could probably 4-man this dungeon anyway with just the others and just deal with the stuns and keep trucking on. So that is that one. As we take a look to Ice Golem's Peak, once again, this is another dungeon where simply you could use this team here and you could actually clear this thing. I actually did it once just to test. It is slow as all hell, but these are some of the breakpoint dungeons that you need to do for the Arbiter missions. So this is fine. Once again, the Ice Golem is honestly my most hated dungeon because the quicker you do it, the more likely you are to fail, because if you deal too much to the damage to the Golem, he's going to revenge you and basically just destroy your life because you did too much damage to him. So you want to play it slow, and honestly, just like this is fine. You can also slap the Elenaril in here and it will also work fine. You can just about chuck anything you want in there. You can bring the Bellower. Your boss damage will be slower, but once again, this can help you deal with something like the waves and mitigating some of that damage that the waves will deal to you, because you do have a small attack break, a small speed break, which is really handy in those situations. But once again, the core of the Tagoar, Mausoleum Mage, and Uugo just gives you so much survivability. It's absolutely fantastic. And then the burn damage is a reliable way to gain a bunch of damage on your targets. Once again, he also has his self-attack buff, so you don't need to bring an attack buffer to get damage out of the Galek, which is nice. Then the next one we run to is just before I recorded this video, I tested it to make sure it worked. Once again, I will go deeper and show you guys runs of this stuff and all that in future videos, but Spider 20. This team, once again, does Spiders 20 for me. It is slow. It's not as fast as some of the other teams where I can get some 32-second runs. This takes about 3 to 3.5 minutes, but it still gets the job done. Once again, this is massively carried by Tagoar because of his ability to revive. If you didn't have Tagoar, you would not be doing this, because the amount of times your champions die in this run is huge, but Tagoar just keeps bringing them back and keeping the team running. So once again, another perfectly fine team where you can just take these champions and go ahead and slap the dungeon. Once again, you do have to get some decent gear on your champions to be able to do this. You need to get them decently fast and stuff like that, but there is plenty of ways to get gear in the game to be able to get to that point. So that is Spiders as well. Now that leaves us with the leftover, which is Fire Knight. Now Fire Knight, this team is not going to get you there. As I mentioned, this is a awkward fight that requires multi-hitters. As you can see, my team is anything but free-to-play, but I'm working on building up champions that I think will do it as free-to-play, and I will update you guys on that one. But this is like the one dungeon where it is very, very more particular, and you really have to use the right combo of champions to get the most hits on the boss, to be able to keep him turn denied and stuff like that. So I will readjust this one, but once again, as you can see, even in my team, I'm still using the Tagoar, the Mausoleum Mage, and the Supreme Galek, and they are working perfectly well. But once again, you do need some other champions in there, and I'm working on building up some of those more free-to-play options to try and make that work as well. The next one we have is I want to jump into the clan boss. So if we jump over into the clan boss, into the Demon Lord, you can see here I've done 3 keys on Nightmare, and I've done 79.37. Now my damage is heavily carried by Nut over here in the middle, who is a premium unit, 100%. I understand that. He also has my attack break. He is very important to me. The other main damage dealer is my Alice, which I completely understand now people can't get. But once again, you can see that I am using the Uugo. Uugo is fantastic for that defense break to maximize some damage capabilities. We got Tagoar, obviously, with the revives and speed buffs is absolutely huge. Then as I mentioned, Supreme Galek to eat every one of the boss's basic attacks so that he can just get himself an extra turn. Then in these last 2 spots, what you will end up wanting is going to be an attack break and also a damage source. Now, often that damage source is going to be poisoning, and there is a lot of poisoners in the game to choose from. A lot of epic poisoners that also have attack break. So if you can get some of them, we have like Venomage, dude, I can't remember all their names, but there is a bunch of them. So keep an eye out for poisoners, keep an eye out for attack breaks, and you will be able to field the team. But once again, Tagoar and Uugo and the Supreme Galek all work really, really well in here for a beginner team. in general. Then the final one that I want to jump into is Hydra. So as you can see over here, we're only on normal because we are still only 30 days into our account. So we're only doing normal. We did manage to do 17.35 million when you only need to do 6.66. So definitely hitting the limit for normal. Once again, we will keep evolving this team. But the good thing about Hydra is we can check the team performance. And as you can see over here, even though I have Nut in my team, who is like meant to be like the PvE god, we are still getting way more damage out of our Supreme Galek. Those AoE burns, AoE block buffs is absolutely massive, and on top of the AoE slow, this guy is an absolute monster for this. And you can see the rest of my team is still consisting of the Mausoleum Mage, the Tagoar, and the Uugo. Reason being, sustain, cleansing, immunity, all that stuff is still absolutely important in these dungeons to be able to maximize your efficiency. So once again, you will often see in a lot of my teams running the Tagoar, the Uugo, and the Mausoleum Mage. They just work so damn well. And then obviously these last two spots are reserved for DPS. Now, there is definitely more niche things you can do in the Hydra. For instance, you know, a Taunter to tank Mischief as well for the buff, steal, and spread. But we are running two block buffs on the team to sort of stop that buff spread as well that happens in there. I'm not going to go too in depth into Hydra for this one. You also kind of want a champion with perfect fail, but they're very hard to come by. So I just opted for, you know, two more units that could do a bit of damage, and away we go. But that is just a look at where all those champions can be used as a free-to-play team core that I think is absolutely fantastic. Now, once again, I do understand that these are champions that come from a download link, but as I mentioned, I do think that with playing this game without a download link just feels like an absolute nightmare to me. And I think with the download links, this game becomes a very, very free-to-play friendly game. Once again, I may do more videos talking about the download code, the beginner codes, where you can get Supreme Galek, you can get Wukong, you can also get Alice now. Definitely some options in there, but like I said, if you're looking at pure progression of an account, I think Supreme Galek is the one that is going to be the most value. But for in-game PvE, maybe you're a spender who's going to do some pulls, you think you'll pull an AoE burner, then yeah, you can definitely go for something like the Wukong as well. But that is a look at the team. Once again, the link is in the description if you do want to have a test run with this team, but I think it is honestly a damn solid start to the game. And like I said, we did manage to get our Arbiter in 30 days as free to play using this team core. But anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this one. As always, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Cheers.